Today is August 1st, and it marks the first day of the 8th annual RPG a Day exercise. So today's prompt word is scenario, and this evening, honestly, I didn't know about the RPG a Day thing, but I might try it. We'll see. Today's prompt word was scenario, and Amy and I decided to do a one-on-one scenario for Call of Cthulhu. So I chose the adventure that she's been bothering me to play, or I've been promising to play for a long time, and it's Paper Chase in the Call of Cthulhu Starter Set. And I don't think I'm going to give spoilers. Maybe we'll just give impressions. So Amy chose as a character Keiko Kane, who's a Japanese American investigator who has a really good biology, very good natural world, and some other good skills. Must have played field hockey in college because she has a hockey stick and can use it pretty well. And really good constitution, so must be athletic, although I guess there's no athletic skill in the Call of Cthulhu, which is interesting. So, as spoiler-free as possible, I will try to summarize. I don't know if I can do it spoiler-free. You think I can do it spoiler-free? Amy, do you think I can do it spoiler-free?
No.
Yeah, Amy's here. She might chime in if she is inspired to do so. Okay, so it's a one-on-one scenario. Keiko Kane is called to do a job for the organization that the investigators it's suggested that they be part of, the Society for the Exploration of the Unexplained, which is kind of a default society that's in the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition book. So she travels to Arnoldsburg, Michigan, to investigate the theft of some books and the disappearance of the uncle of the person who hired her, a one Mr. Thomas Kimball from Michigan. So Amy's character does some investigation in the library or study where this man held all his books in library. The uncle has been missing for about a year. And Amy's character doesn't really find much except for one of the windows are easy to open. They're not broken, but it's easy to open them from the outside. She sees that there's a path that goes by the house, and she follows the path, and it leads to a cemetery. In the cemetery is the caretaker, and Amy's character doesn't roll well in interacting with the caretaker, except when she notices that he has a bottle sticking out of his pocket. So Amy, even though with a poor sleight of hand skill, manages to steal it from him, and it's a bottle of whiskey, which this is 1922, and it's under prohibition. The U.S. is under prohibition, so she uses that as a. She also finds some odd tracks, and leading from a well-worn tombstone that's faded with age. She bribes the caretaker with the return of his whiskey bottle, and that she won't tell the authorities. And he tells her, yes, he used to talk to the uncle, but he's been gone for a year and he misses him. And as she gives him back his bottle, he says, but I think I've seen him. I think he's a ghost, and he comes back. So Amy's character then follows the tracks to a mausoleum door, and even though it's a hard test and her character is sleight of frame, she manages to pull open the mausoleum door and is hit by a waft of miasma and foul smell. This time, even though she has a high constitution, fails it and passes out. That's what the scenario says. If you failed the thing, you pass out. Which makes then for a very short scenario, because when she wakes up, her character is not dead, but there is the missing uncle at night, sitting at his tombstone reading a book. But it's at night, so how is he reading the book? Because he, in fact, has turned into some sort of creature. And Amy makes her appropriate sand roll as she calls out the name, and this person answers to it and has a conversation. And that was the meat of the scenario, because Amy's character, Keiko, has this conversation with this person who was once human that can converse with her, was once human, this missing uncle, and learns about what he has become and what he's doing, Amy convinces him to give the books back, so his nephew isn't too worried. So she suggests that, and that was the fun part too, is really the dialogue between her and this missing uncle, who turned into a monstrous creature. And she convinces him to take one book, and we looked very quickly at Google search what books are around at the time. So we chose Ulysses by James Joyce, and that is in fact what this man takes, because he is going on a journey, and he actually bound the books together himself, because it came out serialized in the early 1920, or during the 1920 year, and this book is proud of, because he knew it would become published one day, all in its entirety, and he wanted to beat the press, as it were. So he takes that book, leaves the rest, helps Amy concoct a story that some kids stole the books, broke in and stole the books, and Amy's going to find them, or get the rest of the books and put them in a box and say, oh, look, here they are. So then he goes back into the mausoleum and tomb and says, me and my friends are leaving now. We will not trouble you again. Closes the tomb door and collapses what must have been some tunnels beneath the mausoleum. So Amy goes back into the study, climbs in, is super duper stealthy, in fact. Oh, the missing uncle also told her where to find his journal, and she finds it and searches for it there at night in the darkness in the study. Well, probably lights a lantern in the study in the darkness, finds it, and also finds a book called Cult of the Ghouls in French. I'm not going to try to pronounce the French name for it. So that's some future plans for Amy's character. And then the next day tells Mr. Kimball that she found the books, that her uncle, they also find a note when they're putting things back together that Amy had created, that the uncle went away. I didn't want to tell his family. And she tries to leave a message for later for the uncle in the mausoleum, also to send a message from wherever you're going to your nephew, so he's not worried. But the nephew is still bothered by this, and she doesn't convince the nephew to drop it and not search for the missing uncle. The nephew says, well, maybe he went to Europe. I will have to start there. That's kind of where we left it. I don't know if we'll ever pick this up again, but it does open things up to a future scenario that maybe I could figure out a one-on-one, where now this Thomas Kimball fellow, who I'll have to develop, it wants to go to Europe and find the missing uncle. And maybe that could lead to other sorts of interesting events, now that Amy's character has the reason why this man left the world of humans and has gone to the underworld, and also has this nice, cool, mythos tome. Amy, do you want to add anything? Okay, I'll prompt you with questions, if that's a little easier, because I think initially she said...
Not really.
So, what did you think of the scenario? I know it was kind of short.
Thought it was very quick.
Yeah, it says it's supposed to be played like very short for 2 to 4 hours. I think it took us like 2 hours, and it was mostly talking. You only interacted with what? 2 people?
3, maybe. The nephew, the gardener, and the bad guy.
Who really wasn't a bad guy. So, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. I think it's just supposed to be an introductory scenario, roll a few dice, but we'll go from there. In the starter set, there's 2 other scenarios that are for more investigators, so we'll see how those go. And also, Lynn Hardy and friends have also just published a one-on-one scenario book, has 2 scenarios, and it's called Does Love Forgive? So maybe we'll pick one of those up. But anyway, that's scenario for RPG A Day 2021.